Welcome back to the Talking Wolves podcast. It is now 4 wins on the bounce of Wolves, 5 unbeaten after a comfortable win on a Sunday afternoon against Tottenham Hotspur. We'll be talking about all the action, Vitor's antics after the game as well, I'm sure. We'll answer your questions later on in the show as well. My name's Dave Azzopardi. It's great to have alongside me once again Mr. Jordan Russell and Joe Parker from Concept Scouting. Jord, how you been keeping, man?
Yeah, all good, all good. Nice weekend, out in the sun, playing some golf. Obviously, like most people, even non-golf fans, watching the Masters over the weekend and last night, like a real good finish, I guess, to it all. I'm happy that Rory won it as well, but I'm one of these, like, I've never been like massively high on Rory. Like, I feel like there's a massive wave of everyone just loves Rory and wants him to do well. I think he's been seen as a bit of a good guy with this live PGA shit that's been going on. But, you know, I'll be honest with you, I was sort of hoping Bryson won yesterday. I'm much more adhered to Bryson than I am to Rory, but yeah, to see him win it and do the Grand Slam, which is like unprecedented. I think he's the 6th now in history, first European. It was pretty good watching yesterday, but obviously knackered now because it was quite a late one, to be honest with you, with the playoffs. So yeah, no, it was good, and obviously, like I say, another Wolves win, so there's no complaints at all.
Yeah, I've not kept track of the golf at all. I knew it was on, and I knew Rory was doing okay. And then one of my mates messaged me yesterday, "Oh, Rory's fluffed it." I woke up to that message. I was like, "Sound." And then I checked the notification. I think Sky sent me a notification to say he'd won it. So yeah, I've not watched it at all. Like, but I've seen quite a few people enjoying it on the timeline. To be fair, on the socials, seems to be quite a popular one. Joe, what about you? What you been up to?
Yeah, all good, mate. Obviously, a big day out of the football yesterday. Obviously, very enjoyable. Got back and watched I kind of watched the start of the golf and then saw that he was choking. And then I kind of turned it off and then popped it back on. I think Rory would have been on about the 14th, 15th hole, or something like that when he started. I think it was the 14th when he just dropped it in the water.
From about 80 yards, yeah. Weird.
I'm a very casual golf fan, so I'll literally only watch the last few holes of the Masters, and I might watch a bit of the other big tournaments, but I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. I can't play golf, so I've been off. But no, obviously football was very good yesterday. I'm sure we'll come on to it, but it's a good time to be a Wolves fan at the minute.
Were you in Wetherspoons post game? Did you miss it at all?
I was in Wetherspoons pre-game and post-game, but not at 6 o'clock when Vitor rocked it, which was so irritating. You've seen the videos pop up of him in Wetherspoons, kind of 3 meters away from where I stood about an hour before. But yeah, fair play to him. He loves the pints, doesn't he?
It's mad because I think, like, I don't know how he gets out. How does he escape from there? I wonder what time he went. Unless he's like, yeah, I'm just going outside, and then there's like a car waiting for him, and he's like jumps in and just does one because you're just gonna have people following you everywhere. You're not even gonna have time to, have a. Apparently, someone Sam who does the fans direct was in Spoons, and he said the amount of people just buying him beers. He's like, he ain't gonna drink them all. The people are just buying him beers for the sake of it. It's crazy.
It's a strange place as well. To me and you've been in there a few times, but like there's no way you can really go and have a quiet pint in there. You can't like slow pop into a quiet room. It's literally like it's a strange pub at the best of times, to be fair. But fair play to him. He could be going into a kind of higher end establishment than the Moon Under the Water. So fair play to him.
No, he's proper lapping it up as well. I am concerned on when results do slow down a little bit, how he's going to approach things socially. But no, he's doing his.
I think it's natural though, isn't it? Like even when you go and beat Tottenham 4-2, there's going to be more fans out than there would be if we'd have got beat 3-0. So I think, to be fair to him, he does seem like, I think there's a bit of it that he's probably playing to the crowd a little bit now, where he's like, it's been reported and it's on national news that he's doing it, so he'll probably keep doing it. But like you say, if we go and get spanked 4-0 by Man United, or the next home game against Leicester, if we don't win the game, I can't imagine he'll be bowling round Wetherspoons. But fair play to him. It's while it lasts, it's all good, isn't it?
I do wonder why. I think he was on the Stellas, I think, last night. I saw, maybe. I don't know.
Stella's about the only thing you can drink in there, to be fair.
Yeah.
I was on the Guinness and Black yesterday, and it was more black than it was Guinness.
Yeah. Respect the Blue Lagoons, man. I've had one of those for a while.
Oil slick, mate. Oil slick's the one.
Exactly.
Jordan
but yeah,
knows all about that.
like I said at the start of the show, it was four wins on the bounce walls, 4 goals as well, 4-2 win over Spurs. Jord, as we expected, unchanged lineup. Vitor made that pretty clear. Cunha coming back from suspension was on the bench. It was weird because I think Wolves had a lot of momentum going into this game, as we explained and spoke about last week in regards to Spurs in this sort of fixture falling in between the European games. It was quite a good time to play Spurs, really. And we took full advantage of that, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought, I mean, I know I said last week that I thought it might be a bit of a chess match for 20 minutes because we wouldn't really have a clue what Spurs team would be turning up and almost start feeling each other out. But we got off to an unbelievable start, to be honest. I think there's a lot to be said about Spurs and how poor they were. And I think that's sort of a bit of the narrative going around in national media, even Match of the Day 2 last night as well. But I think you've got to give credit for how good we were as well at times yesterday. On the ball, off the ball, and Spurs were there for the taking, and we've gone and done a professional job on them. If for me, it could have the scoreline flattered Spurs. I thought it could have been a lot wider of a margin of victory. But momentum and is massive in football, and you're now looking at Sunday going to Old Trafford and thinking, I don't see any way that we don't pick up a result. At the minute, the trajectories of both clubs. So it's going to be really, really an interesting one, I think, come Sunday. But look, I think professional job, same 11, there's consistency in there. People know what they're doing. And I think, again, there's probably questions about whether he changed it for next week. Now Cunha's sort of sat the one game on the bench and do you bring him back in? But again, for me, the message is still loud and clear for me. I don't know how you change a winning team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, Bellegarde came off injured, so I think that maybe would be the open door for Cunha to come back into the team if there was one. But Vitor said after the game, I think Doc obviously came off at half time, and with the Bellegarde one, they were just precautionary changes. But it'd be interesting. I mean, we'll come on to Cunha's second half appearance shortly. But yeah, Joe Aït-Nouri firing early doors, our fastest ever Premier League goal. Beating Sarabia's, who I think he scored against Saints earlier on this season. Great start to a game, Joe. But I mean, again, VAR absolutely killing that for a couple of minutes before we knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, I think we've mentioned this before, if you're a fan watching it on TV, you shouldn't be in a position where you've got more insight than someone who's watching it in the ground. For me, me and you were sat there in the South Bank watching it, not having a clue what's going on. And it kind of it comes across even more pathetic when it's the weekend they've brought in semi-automated offsides, and then when you watch it back and see what the offside query was on Menezes, obviously the argument there is the offside. The argument is he interfering with play?
Yeah.
So the introduction of that semi-automated offside, whilst it looks fairly decent, doesn't help those kind of situations. And we've had situations like that. I know the Kilman header against West Ham last year when Chirova was offside. Similar to that rule, to me, as far as I'm concerned, is Menezes is not doing anything wrong there. Yeah. Even if he's tugging on the keeper, for me, unless he's touching the ball, that's just the way it should go. You want to see goals, don't you? So I think even in the first minute or so before the free kick, I think it was that we put in, you could just tell there was a front foot. Vitor told them to get out there and kind of put the ball in. I think Agbadu's dropped the ball on Strand Larsen straight away, which is exactly what we should be doing against what was a weakened Spurs team, with obviously their focus being on the Europa League, I think, or on Europe at least. So I think obviously Aït-Nouri's got lucky with the ball coming out to him, and it's that kind of shanked finish that, I think, in fairness, when you're going through a bad run of form like Spurs are, they're the kind of goals you concede. I think Vicario should probably do better, but I think the one piece of match of the day analysis last night that was fairly decent was Spurs have left Aït-Nouri and Joe Gomez open on the edge of the box. So regardless of what Vicario does, there should be someone picking up at least one of the two of them. So I saw one of the lads on Twitter posted last night, you might remember the Aït-Nouri's goals and assists target for the year, where I think
Yeah, I
it
saw
was
that, yeah.
2, 3, 5, 8, 10. I think that's 10 he's got now.
10,
So, fair play to him. I've said myself on here and kind of in the pub the last few weeks, I think Aiton has not been as good this season, but I think in his numbers that he's delivering, that would kind of go against that. So it's a great way to start the game.
Yeah, first Wolves defender to pick up 10 Premier League assists, even ahead of Doc. And he's top in terms of goal contributions for any Premier League defender as well so far this season. Obviously, you would expect him as a wing back to probably contribute a little bit more, but it is good over the last few weeks or so that we've seen it. Quite a muted celebration as well, and even after his assist for Strand Larson, didn't seem to celebrate much, but I think that's just the character he is, isn't it? He's just not a sort of, maybe as enthusiastic as such as some of the
I thought it was
stuff.
interesting that you'd probably seen it in the South Bank when we'll come on to the end of the game, but obviously when the players are trying to push people towards the South Bank, that all the players were looking at Aiton, and he didn't want to do it. Like, I think he hates it's almost like he hates the limelight in a way, which I think is a really good attribute to have when you're as talented as he is, because all he wants to do is do it with the ball. He doesn't want to be in the press. He doesn't want to be in the media. He doesn't want to be the kind of front man of the squad, which is fair enough. But I think he's. I've seen him a few times. I remember we've had London games, and when we play in London, he travels sometimes back down to France, I think. And we've seen him on the tube a couple of times after the game, and he's literally keeps his head down, hat on, headphones on. He's not looking to have any kind of interaction with anybody. I think that's just his personality, and fair play to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to Vicario, I think that sort of set the tone for his game as well. Jordy really struggled to get going in terms of his distribution as well. There was a chance just after the first goal that Jord Strand Larson will probably be disappointed that he didn't put away, where he's sort of lying on the floor and swinging at it. But that all came from Vicario's poor distribution. And yeah, the second goal, like Joe said earlier, when things aren't going your way, goals like that you are conceding, and that one was just mental again. He parries it onto his own defender into the back of the net, and when the luck's against you, and I'm sure Ange will feel like that as well, when the luck's against you, it's really against you.
Yeah, and I think with Vicario, he's one of the, I know it's hard to say after yesterday, but I think he's one of the better goalkeepers in the league, to be honest with you. I do actually really like him, but yesterday, I think, yeah, like you say, made a mistake in the first minute, really. I thought it was a poor punch, really, for the Aiton goal. And then, yeah, like you say, his distribution on the ball almost gifted Strand Larson one. And then the second one, I'm not even sure what he's trying to do with it. He's like trying to push it away. And I think he's got no pressure on him. I think it's easy for him to just try and catch the ball.
Yeah.
And he's just not pushed it onto Jed Spence, who can't get out of the way. It was just a bit of a comical goal, but I do think that's where Tottenham are at the moment. And I think I think from a Tottenham perspective, I really think for Ange, it's shit or bust with the Europa League. I think if they could even lose in the final of the Europa League, I think he's getting the sack. I think he's got to win that thing to even have a chance of keeping his job. And I mean, there's been times, in recent history where Wolves have played these sort of teams that have banged out of form, and we just a bit of a charity case, and we just roll over and give them the springboard they need to kickstart the season. So it was actually good for me that we weren't that yesterday, and there's a bit of a killer instinct about us, and you got a bit of a wounded animal there, and just put him away. And like I say, it could have been by a wider margin, but yeah, the second goal's really poor, and I think the only sort of Solomon I'll take from it is that Menezzi got the assist on FPL, so that's technically a goal contribution for the Menezzi train.
I cannot believe the energy that guy has, by the way. I think it was right towards the end of the game. I think I saw a post after the game as well. I was like, rumour has it Menezzi's still running. Because I know we've had conversations, and probably he's not going to be in the limelight as such this week, because we have an in-depth conversation about him every single week on the podcast. But the energy that guy has is phenomenal. I have got to say it, like, ridiculous how much he was running.
All I'll say, I think there's only one thing to say on it. 5 starts. He started all 5 of the last games, and we're 5 unbeaten. So it's all down to Marshall Menezzi.
I think when you watch the kind of style that we broached the game with yesterday, though, kind of high pressing, especially when Spurs started to give the ball away at the back, for me, there's nobody I'd want in that team anymore than Menezzi, given what he does off the ball. And even the second half, kind of 80th minute, 85th minute, is chasing everything down. And what that's done, players like Sarabia, who, I've described in the past as kind of back foot, steady type, not wanting to press, it's infectious. Players follow him. Players follow him in. So, when Menezes is pressing Vicario, you'll see Sarabia move on to Romero, or you'll see, one of Joe Gomez press on. And that's something that we've not had before, because you've got to press from the front. And I don't think Strang Larsson's that type of, and I think he is doing it at the moment, but I don't think he's naturally that kind of high pressing centre forward. But then because Menezes is doing it, it's almost that kind of like, and happens at every level of football. If one of your teammates is running around like that, he's setting the bar, and you're almost having to match him.
Yeah.
And that's where, once you bring one player in like that, and Bellegarde's very similar actually, they both do a really good job of that. The rest of the team have to follow, and you're getting players that, like, Joe Gomez naturally does that, but then even Cunha, when he comes on, he's doing it. And I think it's really important that a lot of people on social media see Menezes as a bit of a kind of comedy character, but I don't personally. I know Jord doesn't. He has transformed us, and people aren't going to like it, but he has. The way we play without the ball, 60-70% of that is because of the way Marshall Menezes presses. That's a fact. That's just, you can see it, and the stats prove it. How harder we press with him in the team versus when he's not in the team, it's night and day. And when you're playing a team like Spurs, who like to piss about with the ball, and teams like Southampton, who like to piss about with the ball, it's perfect. A mate of mine, who will remain unnamed, texted me last night, kind of cap in hand, saying, I was wrong about Menezes. I'm seeing what he's bringing now.
Was it Matt Cooper?
It wasn't Matt Cooper, no. Matt and Gully are next on the. They'll be next on the Menezes train, I'm telling you.
I don't think they're allowed on it now. I think the train's completely departed. Yeah,
we've left to stop now. But yeah, I love players like that. You can have as many kind of technical number 10s and wingers and people like that in your team, but people who set the press like that, they're worth a weight in gold for me.
I think when we're in the position that we are in regards to position in the table, but also in terms of overall squad strength. Look, player for player, we're not as good and not as strong as the teams at the top end of the table. Yeah. But if you can get players that are going to give 110% from minute 1 to minute or whatever, 95, 96, you're in a good place. And I think, like you both said there, the fact that we haven't lost the last 5 games, I think part of it is contributed to him and his work rate. And then, like you said, Joe, the infectious element of it, because I agree. I think, especially yesterday, when you're 2-0 up, you know that Spurs are going to play a much higher line anyway. Yeah. And I think there was a couple of times where the final ball wasn't quite on, but we caught Spurs out. And on another day, again, like you said, George, we could have had 5-6 plus goals, because the way that we were pressing them all through Marshall Menezes, and they were losing the ball. And and I think Vitor deserves credit for that, because I think even before Menezes was sort of brought into the team, we did see this much higher pressing, higher, energy Wolves team that we probably didn't really see before. Even Jord Strang Larsson, who struggled to get 70 minutes out before, he's come back from his injury, looks hell of a lot fitter, but I think even he was doing it towards the end of the game.
It's interesting, though, because I, through the scouting account, I've been trying to look at more the kind of style of players rather than, if you look at wingers as an example, across the Premier League, they're fit kind of 3 or 4 really clear styles. You've got your kind of traditional winger, likes to put crosses in. You've got your defensive winger. You've got your winger who likes to cut inside, your Salahs, and then you've got the all-rounders. And looking at that, look at the data of the last few weeks, Pablo Sarabia is a defensive winger, looking at his stats, the way that he plays, because of the amount that he presses. Right. And that's gone like that since Vitor came in, which partially I think is down to the manager, but I think it's largely down to the kind of press and the way that we set that. And someone like Sarabia coming on in place of Bellegarde when Cunha sat on the bench, I thought was an interesting change personally. Well, yeah. Because I think he trusts Pablo Sarabia now, to be honest. And I don't think Gary O'Neill necessarily did. And I think all you have to do is look at the way he was pressing the wing backs yesterday, the full backs yesterday, whether it was Jed Spence or whoever it was, that we've now got players who will put that shift in. And I think that's maybe why you're seeing Guedes out the squad. So I'm not sure he not necessarily whether he's willing to do it. I'm not sure he can. I'm not sure he's got that
Yeah.
in his locker. So I think across the board, whilst I think Marshall Molineux has been really important to it, I think the willingness from our attacking players to do that dirty work and press and keep going and kind of make tackles high up the pitch, and that's the big part for me of why we are where we are now.
Obviously, it was said that Tommy Doyle and Gedge were left out due to tactical reasons. Someone sent us a picture yesterday. I never posted it because I couldn't verify it, but of Gedge at Luton Airport yesterday, just sat on his own in one of the maybe Wetherspoons at Luton Airport. I don't know if there is one there, but
is there a flight to Riyadh there? Is there?
Who knows? But I agree. I think that was the whole sort of tone throughout the second half as well. When we conceded, obviously the goals at 3-1, and then obviously to make it 2-1, sorry, and then to make it 3-2 as well. I think there would have been a lot of wall sides that crumbled there, genuinely, in yesteryear. But the way that we sort of continued to attack against Spurs, and at every time at 2-1, we made it 3-1 really quickly, and then when they got it back to 3-2, we made sure we made it 4-2 really quickly. I think that was really, really important. The first Spurs goal, Jord, I wasn't sure about Semedo's performance as a whole yesterday. I just felt like, I don't know if he looked tired. I don't know what it was, but in the first half, there was times where he just didn't really seem to put the burners on to get back, and maybe not effort, but the work rate didn't quite look there. But I think he'll be disappointed with how the first goal goes in, because I think he just gets caught out slightly, and he's trying maybe just a little subtle flick to take it past Tell, who's waiting to tap it in. But that was a little bit of a frustrating goal to concede, I think.
Yeah, it's just not a good goal to concede, and I don't think it's not a good look on Semedo. And I think Semedo's been brilliant this year. And since he's took the armband, I think he's gone up another level, to be honest with you. I think he's been unbelievable, really, for the majority of this season. And he really sort of stood up when there was a lot of adversity, took the armband on, took that sort of weight on his shoulders, and I think he's been near on perfect since then, to be honest with you. But I think for that goal, he'll be really disappointed with it. It reminded me a little bit of almost like mini soccer, like kids, like you just try and flick it away and stuff. And I think someone who's experienced as Semedo would have been better pressed. I know he's facing towards his goal almost, or at least parallel to the away end. He'd have been much better pressed, just side footing it back the where it came from and just twatting it the other way rather than trying to flick it and try and be cute with it. I always think, as a defender, first of all, just clear your lines. Especially stuff like just clear your lines, get the ball as far away from the goal as possible. And I don't think we need to overanalyze it. I think Semedo would know that. I think it was a mistake in a time of the game where we were really comfortable, and we made it less comfortable with that. But you can tell from his reaction, he knows, and I think I'd imagine you wouldn't probably see that again from him for a long time. I just think it's a personal error, lack of judgment, and we've conceded from it. But I think we want to be disappointed about it for sure.
Like I said, we made us got that 2-goal cushion back again. And Joe, going back to what you said earlier, this was all from the press. Romero, who Spurs fans will probably label as one of the best centre backs in the league, and he's a very good centre back. He was having words with some of the Brazilians throughout the game. I think João Gomez, he was chirping out a little bit throughout the match as well. But this was poor from him, completely misjudged it. And Ryan Aït-Nouri, that high press, catches him out and puts it on a plate for Strand Larsen to make it 5 goals in 4 games. But exactly what we were talking about. I think Vitor, probably not the prettiest goal of the game, but in terms of what he sets the team out to do, that was almost perfect, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I think the fact that Aït-Nouri is so high up the pitch in that kind of moment where we've just gone 2-1 down the last 5 minutes, the fact that he's so high up the pitch pressing, knowing that a mistake's going to come, says a lot, I think, mentality-wise. I think in the past, not even just necessarily under Gary O'Neill, as many Wolves teams as I can remember, we'd go 2-1 up, sit back and just try and contain and then concede anyway. Whereas I think Vitor and his coaching staff, their mentality is kind of front foot largely. And there are obviously moments where we need to camp in, and we have done. And I think the Southampton game was a good example when they pulled a goal back, we did sit in and could have maybe brought issues on for ourselves. But I think the fact that we maybe sensed blood a little bit yesterday, especially with Romero. Romero's always prone to a ricket for me. I do think he's a good defender, but I think he's a lot better next to Van der Ven. Similarly to maybe how Doherty and Totti are much better next to Agba do. I think Van der Ven, with his pace, can often get people out of jail, whereas I think yesterday having Ben Davies next to him, no disrespect to Ben Davies, but he's not the same category of defender as Mickey Van der Ven is. So I think the fact that Aït-Nouri's up his arse and he's pressing him like that is brilliant. And to be honest, Aït-Nouri in the past has been criticised for that final ball, and whilst it looks like a simple ball, it's a really kind of key moment in the game. If he fluffs that cross, which he has done before, if he fluffs that kind of lay into Strand Larsen, then there's every chance we don't win that game. So I think Strand Larsen, I particularly last kind of 3 months before this run of form kind of backed him. I sense that what he was doing was still doing what we needed him to do. Maybe the goals weren't coming, but now that the goals have come, I haven't been on the podcast since this kind of run of form's come back. I think this is all he's done now is he's putting the ball away. Nothing else has changed. And actually, to be fair, yes, I thought he was quite poor. And I think he alluded to that himself yesterday. I think he said it was a bit of an off game for me, but I got the goal. And he missed a chance or two. But I think the combinations now, you can start to see that there are relationships building in this team. I think, with Aït-Nouri and Strand Larsen and Bellegarde and Manetzi, that they're kind of building. Be interesting to see what happens in the summer and obviously who we can keep hold of. But I think Aït-Nouri, that's the kind of that assist that he gets yesterday. Maybe he doesn't get last season or at the start of the season. Maybe he's not pressing in that way. So it was really a funny one yesterday. It wasn't really like a Wolves performance. It wasn't the archetypal Wolves performance for me. I said to Aid, who I was next to, that this isn't a normal Wolves performance. You can just tell we're front foot, we sense blood, we're going for it, and we've not done that for a long time. Even under Nuno, the football was very conservative, whereas now, when Vitor knows we can go and win a game, he tries to go and win it, and that goal's a perfect example of that.
Yeah. The difference is as well, Strand Larsen's actually getting in those right areas. He was on the ball a lot, maybe sort of end of last year, early part of this year, but it was in the wrong areas. But now they're actually getting him in the box, and he's putting the ball in the back of the net. You look at some of the goals, Southampton goal, obviously his second goal was outside of the area, but the last few, Ipswich goal, it's just doing what a striker should do and being in the box, and when he's being fed, he puts the ball in the back of the net.
I think that at the start of the season, people were criticising him for not holding the ball up, which statistically was wrong because he was holding the ball up fairly well. And I think he's doing a little bit less of that now. I think he's dropping off, laying it back into midfield, then getting in behind again. And you can tell just watching him, he's back and forth. He's not lateral. He's back and forward. He's not moving out to the wing to pick the ball up. He's not moving kind of out to a position to cover someone. He's staying in the width of the penalty box, which you two have played football. That's what all coaches tell you. Any good number 9, they stay in the width of the penalty box. Liam Delap's a really good example of it. So I think he's just simplified his game a little bit. And again, I've not been on the podcast since Vitor mentioned this, but he did say that's why Manetzi's there, because Strand Larsen doesn't need to do that. We're taking away from his game. So putting Manetzi in that position is allowing Strand Larsen to be in the right position at the right time. So I think we've seen throughout the season, if he gets a chance 9 times out of 10, he'll put it away. That one where he sat on his arse in the first half, I still think that's a difficult finish, really. It's instinctive, isn't it? Just poke a foot out and see what happens. But I've been really impressed with him the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of factors for it, but I just think he looks sharper as well. I think he looks much sharper. He wants it more, and it's just working. It's working well at the moment. We saw then, obviously, the introduction. We saw Rodrigo Gomez come on, and then Mateus Cunha. We knew he was going to play some part in the game anyway. Just over half an hour to go.
Your mate.
Say again, sorry?
Your mate.
Yeah, my best mate, yeah. He looked sharp, to be fair, Jord. He made... we conceded the second goal, which, again, I mean, the second Spurs goal, which, again, I think Wolves will be disappointed with how that managed to... with how that managed to go in. But in terms of the, Cunha's cameo, I thought he looked sharp. He wanted to make things happen. He made things tick. There were certain elements where And I suppose that's just Mateus Cunha, who was frustrated where players didn't make the runs or didn't make the pass to him. But he looked like a threat straight away, didn't he? Jord, sorry.
Yeah, almost like he had a bit of almost like he had a bit of a point to prove. I felt like when he came on in a way of he seemed at it and he seemed like he was sprightly. Again, the gesturing and all that sort of stuff that I don't really like, but that's part of his game, I think, a little bit. And but he was really sharp to latch onto that loose ball by Bergwell, I think it was, for the fourth, and he's took it extremely well. And that's what he can do. He's a quality footballer. Probably our best, quality-wise, probably the best player we've got in our squad. And he's done what he's done most of the season when he's been available to be on the football pitch for us. He's put the ball in the back of the net. And no one has ever doubted that about Mateus Cunha. His footballing ability and what he can do with the football. He's up there with the best that ever wore gold and black in my opinion, in my lifetime. So I don't think anyone can take that away from him. But yeah, it looked like he had a point to prove. He wanted to, and again, the celebration. Do I buy it? I don't know necessarily. But I feel like when it comes to Cunha now, I think you're better off just not even putting any more petrol on the fire, because I think he'll trip himself up at some point. So yeah, I'm going to stop trying to talk about his social antics and what I think of him as a player, because I just think he'll end up tripping himself up before now and the end of the season anyway.
I think we knew, Joe, sort of Friday when Cunha was going to be benched, when he's going to get subbed on, he would always have a point to prove. And I think we as a team were quite fortunate that we were in a positive position in the game, that he can come on and show his quality. And I think he did that as soon as he came on. You could tell that he was one of the best football players on that pitch. But I think he had to. I think he had to prove a point. Like George said, I mean, the finish was fantastic because he had chances like that against Villa. Obviously, he ended up scoring the second goal in that game, but he had one or two against Villa like that, which Martinez saved at the time. But he took that one well yesterday. Like George said, I'm not falling for the celebration, as I don't think anybody listening to this podcast would expect me to. But in terms of quality of performance, it was the Mateus Cunha that we expected to see.
Yeah, it was. And I've got no issues with the celebration, to be fair. I sensed there was probably a little bit of, he had to give a little bit of something back, which he obviously has done. What he does on social media and what he does outside of football, like George says, there's no point going into it, because as long as he does the stuff on the pitch, everyone will forget the other stuff. That's just a fact, until the next time. So I think when he came on, the Bergwall mistake is a kind of forced error on the back of Cunha pressing him, which previous managers have said that's an issue for him. He doesn't necessarily press or doesn't defend as much as maybe he needs to. So fair play to him. I think the attitude that he walked onto the pitch with was the right one, because he got us back. He got us on the front foot. He showed what he can do. I think he looked really sharp. I think he had a chance. I'm not sure whether it was a free kick. I think he hit one just over the bar as well, just before the goal. So we all know how good of a player he is. We know what he brings to the team, whether that's through the middle or whether it's kind of from wide. I think he was kind of playing through the middle when he came on yesterday. Him and Molineux were switching. So I thought, but he did exactly what he should have done, and he came on, got his goal. Everything looks rosy in the camp now. Hopefully that stays. Hopefully it does. But I still stand by the fact that I said this in the ground yesterday. I still think we're a better team with him out of it. I think and it sounds odd, he's definitely the best individual on the pitch, but I don't think we're any worse off as a team without him, because I think he brings things that we don't have, but also the team can, as a collective, maybe slightly better as a team together. Even when he came on yesterday, there was a kind of feeling that everything was then going through him, which is fine. I haven't got any issue with that, because you can see what he can do with the ball. But when the chips are down and maybe it's 2-2 in the game and he comes on, is that the best decision to make? I think you can see on 41st, 42nd minute when Bellegarde has to go off. I was at the bar by then, to be fair. But when Bellegarde has to go off, the choice to bring Sarabia on, I think speaks volumes, really. Because I think politically, it probably would have been a good time to bring Cunha on off the ground or at the bar. You can get him on the pitch quietly. I think that might have been the right thing to do, but I think fair play to Vitor, he stuck with it. I think we know what Sarabia brings now, whereas I think maybe there would have been a question mark over what Mateus Cunha stepped onto the pitch yesterday, but full credit to him because he put a shift in, to be fair. He did the right things with the ball, right things without it. So hopefully we can move on from it all and have a solid push at the end of the season now.
Yeah, I think he's gone level now with Raul Jimenez's best season in terms of non-penalty goals now. And I think I posted maybe a few weeks ago, it was just before the suspension actually, that he was only a few goals away from beating Raul's debut season in terms of Premier League goals. And there is a chance if he gets his head down, he can still do that between now and the end of the campaign, especially adding another one yesterday. But I still think, like you said, Joe, I think Jord, we probably would have still won that game without Cunha, and that's why I think Vitor will probably look to stay unchanged at the start of the Manchester United game as well, because in terms of team performance and the energy levels and the performance levels, it was right up there anyway.
I just don't, again, I sound like a broken record, but I just don't think you can change a winning team in a way of why break up the harmony? Why break up what's going on with what the good things are within this team at the moment? And again, Cunha, talent-wise, is comfortably in our best 11, but the collective's working far greater at the moment than it has for the majority of the season. So you've got to stick with it, in my opinion. This isn't for me saying that Cunha can't start again for the rest of the season at all. But I just think for right now, I think you're hard pressed for him to start, especially if Bellegarde's fit as well. I think there's definitely a conversation to be had if Bellegarde's out for whatever reason. Do you start with Sarabia or Cunha? Yeah. But if Bellegarde is fit, I think you just go with the same 11 again, and you look to do the same thing again. You bring him on at the hour mark or half time if we need a bit more creativity, and you do it that way around. I think still for me, I think Vitor is definitely. I questioned it last week in a way of a rhetorical question. Is he strong enough to do it? I think coming out on Friday, yeah, he absolutely is. I think Vitor would be looking at it very much now of next season planning. Who is going to be here next season? Who's on the bus? Who wants to be here? And I don't think there's a world really where Cunha stays still. So it might just be the fact that Vitor doesn't owe Cunha anything. He goes, you know what? I'm planning for next season. I'll still use you because you are a match winner and you are a brilliant footballer. But this is for me now shaping my squad for next year. I can really see Vitor taking that sort of approach and stance with it and being very stubborn with his way on that approach as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think everybody would agree with that approach. I think the obviously two other players that are sticking out there are Nelson Semedo and Pablo Sarabia, because Sarabia's played, and we've used his stat for the last few podcasts, and it still stands. He's played in every game this year at least. So it's interesting because Vitor obviously likes him and trusts him, and I think that in terms of what he's given us over the last couple of, the Ipswich game, a perfect example, and I think with those goal contributions, that's probably why he deserved to come on earlier yesterday against Spurs. And then obviously Semedo's the other one because you've got Pedro Lima, who do have a slight knock for yesterday, but Rodrigo Gomez, who could come on there and play. But I do agree. I think now we are safe. Yes, we want to sort of start looking up the table. But I think you still have to have one eye on next season and shaping it and trusting players and playing players who you know will be part of this squad next season as well. But I don't know. It will be an interesting press conference, I think, on Friday again to see if anything is said about that. But I don't think he'll be as black and white in terms of what his team's going to be. He may well do. He may say, I'm sticking with a winning team. Because that, to be fair, that's the approach, and that's what he said. I think he said 4 games, 3 wins, and I think that's what he said. So you would assume his stance will stay the same unless there are any major injuries. But it's a very productive weekend for Wolves anyway. A massive win. Now up to 16th. I think it's the first time this season we've been above 17th, which is It's a nice feeling. Obviously, it's not nice to still be down this side of the table, but it's a nice feeling to be slightly higher up as well. But Manchester United this weekend, boys, we touched on them a little bit earlier. Joe, they'll be coming off the back of a second leg in the Europa League, which I'm sure will be a tough game against Lyon. Got a couple of injuries out and a disastrous afternoon yesterday. They had a heavy defeat against Newcastle. I think, again, very similar to the Spurs game, this is quite a good time to play Manchester United.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's a bad time to play Man United this season, to be fair. I think I only saw bits and bobs of the game yesterday, but I don't think they were maybe as bad as the result suggests. But obviously, the Newcastle are clinical. They're not a team that particularly worries me whatsoever. Similar to Spurs, yes, they kind of went into that game thinking we're going to get a result, and I'm in the same zone for the United game on Sunday, especially after they're going to come off, hopefully a 120 minutes on Thursday, kind of getting dragged out by Lyon, and obviously Lyon are a very good side, and they've got some really talented forward players. So I think they're a team. Man United are a team that we should be going and getting a result at Old Trafford on Sunday. For me, I think if we come away from there with a draw, it's probably a bad result. I think genuinely the way they're playing at the moment, we should be going and beating them. That being said, if we come away with a point and keep this unbeaten record together, then brilliant. You'll always take a point away from home in the Premier League. So I think team selection for me stays. I think Jord said it stays as it is. Obviously, Man United are chopping and changing goalkeepers. We've put Onana under pressure at Old Trafford before. So I think they've got that back line that we can put under pressure, similar to Spurs. I think with the likes of if Onana comes back in, and I don't know if Delic's still fit, but Delic's always got a ricket in him for me. So I fancy it. I think we've not touched on Andre and Joe Gomez, have we, from yesterday, because it's almost a given how dominant and how good they are. But I think if you look at Andre and Joe Gomez against Ugarte and whoever it is who plays next to him on Sunday, that's a midfield battle that I know we will win, regardless if those two players are on the pitch. So I'd like to think we can go and get a result on Sunday. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You mentioned João Gomez and Andre. We haven't spoke about Agbadou as well, who had a phenomenal game. I thought yesterday. There was once one instance where I think he played it across his own box and caused a bit of a problem. But in terms of just pure dominance against the Spurs forwards, it was another phenomenal.
I think with Agbadou, similar to the two midfield, it's almost kind of what you're going to get from him. Agbadou does have a kind of dodgy pass in him every game, at least once. But the way he's brought Doherty and Totti up to his level has been really, really solid. And I think if he was 2 or 3 years younger, I think he'd have probably gone to a team in a higher position than us. I think the fact that he's 28, I think if we can get 3 good years out of Agbadou now, I think we're going to push ourselves up the league purely based off having him in our team, because he's sensational. He's top class, and there's quite a comedic moment at the start of the second half where he kind of legged it over to, I think it was Solanke who had the ball in some kind of like comedy run heading over to look like he was going to knock him out or something. But I think Solanke is a good example of a centre forward against Agbadou. You might as well just sit there, mate, because you're not going to get anything out of him. Solanke was awful yesterday. Did absolutely nothing. And I think if you're looking at the likes of Xerxes and Højlund, I'd like to think there's a similar story. I think Agbadou might struggle against players who've got pace running in behind, and Højlund is quick, but United don't use him in that way. They treat him as if he's a target man, which he isn't really, which is funny considering his size. But I think Agbadou, there aren't many centre forwards who'll get the better of Emmanuel Agbadou between now and the end of the season, hopefully moving forward next year, because he's been an absolute revelation.
Yeah. He's been class, hasn't he? I think I was going to say the only time to sort of solidify your point there, Joe, the only time I think he's looked dodgy or a little bit suspect was that Anfield game where Jota was running, we know what Jota is, getting in around his ankles and whatever, and gave away the penalty, didn't he? But I think there's a lot said about Gomez and Andre, but actually it's just having such a strong spine. And I feel like you've got Agbadou at the base of that with them two, and then you put Strand Larsen at the top of the point who's just scoring goals. I feel like it's a real solid sort of quartet. You've got running for the middle of your pitch, and it's Premier League quality, and probably, well, I think could quite easily be fringe European spot quality between those four. And I think we just need to build on that. And I think, if you've got that strong base and strong spine within a squad, or from a starting 11, it's a good platform to then fit players in and around it, basically.
I think Xerxes out as well now. I think he had a nasty injury against Newcastle, so he might be out. So it restricts their choices a little bit. But no, I agree. I think similar to the Spurs game, we are on good form. They're not in good form, and hopefully we can take advantage of that. But I think in terms of player for player, like in terms of what we're looking at the moment, who's available. Obviously, we've got a lot more rest than them. If you want to take that into account, it's a good chance to build on our really strong run of form at the moment. And I think just quickly looking at the Premier League table, hopefully close the gap on them, because obviously we've overtaken West Ham now. We will go level on points with Manchester United if we win this game. They've got slightly better goal difference than us. Depending on Spurs' result, we could overtake them as well. But yeah, I mean, if results go our way, within the next 2 weeks, we could be up to 13th in the Premier League table. That's
got to be the target now, hasn't it? That's got to be the target. I think
if you can finish ahead of that pack of teams, Everton, United, and Spurs, definitely.
Yeah, that's what we should be targeting. We should be targeting finishing 17th, because I think we're a better side than West Ham, and I think we showed yesterday we're a better team than Tottenham. We've got obviously United coming up. So personally, I know we're biased, but I think we're a better team than all of them. Genuinely, and I think if you take the midfield of Andre and Joe Gomez, I think they're Champions League level. I don't think there's many Premier League midfield pairings that are better than that, if any. To be honest with you, I think even if you look at the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, all those teams, I think they'd take both of them in the starting lineups straight away. I think they're both absolutely incredible. So there's no reason why we can't be looking to finish 13th, 14th and have a really strong end to the season.
Yeah, which we haven't had in a long time, so it'd be nice to do so. Let's finish off, lads, with some questions as well. Andy Hipkins, does Tommy Doyle and Gonzalo Guedes being left out for tactical reasons today make their summer departures look likely? I think so. George, you mentioned before about Tommy Doyle. You think he's a cert? Well, saying that now, Sheffield.
Saying that, yeah. I mean,
Sheffield United might bottle promotion.
If Sheffield United come up, I think Tommy Doyle's going to Sheffield United because Chris Wilder loves him. But they've lost 3 in a row, haven't they? I think
he's lost his head as well. I think they might have bottled it, to be honest.
But yeah, I think he's lost it completely, because it wasn't only just the dugout. With the Plymouth players. Did you see at the end of the game going at a Plymouth fan? Yeah, just calling him like a fat bastard and saying you're going down. What are you doing? He's like completely lost his head. No, I think Tommy Doyle needs to get out of Wolves for Tommy Doyle's sake. In a way of, I really like him. I think we're all relatively high on him. He's just not at that level to break in. And to be fair, that's no disgrace. We were saying Ruben Neves might not be able to break into it last week. Caused a stir on that. Tommy Doyle needs to play football, and Guedes, I don't know. Like, I thought he's been all right actually at times this season, but it's just never really been a good fit. Really, it's never shown Valencia levels of form here, and I think he'd probably be one to go out as well. I think another one that'll be an interesting one is Hwang as well, because I think Hwang, for the wages he's on and probably the market value we could get for him still. The fact he's not kicking a ball, I think there's going to be a real conversation there to be had whether, cash in on him, because I think that £25 million from Marseille in the summer, just gone. We probably aren't getting 25 million quid offers in for him this summer. But do you cash in or not?
It'd be interesting. Obviously, he came on yesterday for a little bit at the end. But yeah, I don't know if Hwang, but yeah, Doyle and Guedes, Joe, for you, I think they probably are moving on. Even Doyle, to be fair, even if it alone for 12 months, I think, but he just doesn't, at the moment, his play style just doesn't fit into how Vitor wants to play. And but saying that, he wouldn't get into that midfield too in terms of quality anyway at the moment.
No, I think allowing would be probably the right thing to do for him, because I think with the length of the contract that he's on, I think even if he comes back next summer, there'll still be a bit of value there. And if he can play for a Premier League team, maybe a team that's come up, whether it's Sheffield United or I said yesterday, I could see him in that Leeds team. To be honest, I can see him slotting in. So I wouldn't necessarily sell him, considering we bought him for £5 million ish. I think in a kind of freak deal with Man City, but the I still think he's got some value in terms of the market. I don't see him getting in our team anytime soon. Even with the likes of the players that we could potentially drop into midfield ahead of him, even that Bellegarde, Menezes can play in there. I still want to see more from Boubacar Traoré as a kind of support midfielder. I still think he can bring something. So I think he's got the energy that Vitor would like. I think Tommy Doyle's not that type of player. He's a completely different kind of player, and he's got some really strong attributes. But I don't think he's necessarily suited to the speed of the Premier League. I don't think he's necessarily suited to the pressing that Vitor in particular would want from him. So I think it's a shame. Hwang, for me, thought he looked okay when he came on yesterday, but on with Jord. If you can get 15 million quid for him, he goes, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in regards to Vitor Pereira and sort of comparing him to Nuno, which I think is a little bit early at the moment. But Ethan's probably got a better question. Is Vitor Pereira the second best manager Wolves have had in the Premier League era? Or was that jumping the gun a bit? That's probably a fairer question because obviously it's Vitor versus Bruno Lage, Lopetegui and Gary O'Neill.
Yeah, of course he is, but there's no great competition in that regard, is there? I don't think there's any doubt that he's this, not just what he's doing on the pitch, but what he's doing off the pitch and how together the squad seems. I think if you take into consideration all of Nuno's reign, including the last 18 months, then we only need to have a solid 12 months with Vitor next season, and he's not going to be far off that, personally. I know Nuno got us up, but if you look at the squad that we had, we should have been getting promoted anyway. So obviously Nuno was brilliant for us, and he's proven to be brilliant for Forest. But I think there's a kind of a legacy that he's left behind that maybe we underperformed in the last 18 months, and I think that's fair. So I think that the Lopetegui period was really strong, I thought, in that second half of the season, particularly at home. But I think he never really had the relationship with the fans that Vitor's already got. So, and obviously the way he left would suggest he's not held in the same regard as Bruno Lage is a funny one because, again, start of his reign really good, end of his reign. I remember being sat in Brussels with you and Matt Dave, but after the West Ham game when he had the chop and everybody was gagging for him to go. So I think with Vitor, what he brings, even if we're going to be losing games, I still think we'll be losing games in the right way. Whereas I think that the style of football that Lopetegui played and Nuno played, less so Bruno Lage, but the football under Nuno towards the end particularly was awful. Whereas with Vitor, if we go and get spanked 3 or 4-0, I think it'll be in the right way, in a weird way. So he's got to be right up there, hasn't he?
Yeah. You agree with that, Jord?
I just think, I do. I think longevity is going to be the barometer when it comes to Pereira and Nuno and how long he's here. And I think Pereira's stock's going up by the day, and I hope that I don't think we need to jump the gun necessarily and give him a big contract extension because we've got for another 12. I think it was an 18-month deal, but I think we need to be looking at that in the background, thinking, he warrants being here for a longer term contract. But we got stung in the summer by doing that with Gary O'Neill, somewhat. But I think that it just feels like the club's back a little bit, and I've been a little bit distant, I'd say, from the club for a year or so, from wanting to go to games as much and make an effort to go home or away. But I think the more this goes on, the more it's very much you want to be part of it. It feels like there was real momentum. And again, we spoke about momentum the last few weeks on the pod. Like, we need momentum finishing this season. If we can have a really strong end to this season, pre-season, the excitement, the build-up to the start of next season, like who knows where we could finish next season? Honestly, I think the springboard's there for us to go and compete for those fringe European spots next year. I really, really do. As long as he gets backed, and that's the big thing that we can't control, or Perez's going to control. Our foes are going to back him. I think that's the biggest stumbling block we're going to have.
I think they'll be loving it at the moment, though, Fosun, in terms of momentum, because if we can continue the strong run of form, you would hope, regardless of the result at Old Trafford, you would still hope that we can get a positive result against Leicester in a couple of weeks' time, season ticket prices probably aren't going to be far away from them, because I think probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks we would have mathematically secured survival. And that's when season ticket prices will come out, because we're winning games. You'll get a much higher percentage of people renewing, and I think that'll put them in good stead. And in terms of the contract, I don't think they'll be as stupid to just jump on a 4-year deal now, but I think they'll probably give him maybe another 2-year extension, another year on top of that, and just keep on doing that. I think that's probably the safer bet at the moment. But yeah, lots of questions in regards to Nuno and the comparisons. But I do agree. I think, ultimately we're still sat 16th in the Premier League table. Yeah, he's done a great job, but there's still a lot of work. There's still a lot of work left to do. Let's see if there's any other questions. Good one here from Drew Freaking. Take Man City out of the equation. Is there any centre back from Wolves' remaining opponents you would trade for Agbadou? So that's, I have to get the fixture list up. Man U,
Yes.
Leicester. I've also got Brentford last game of the season. I don't think there's many
Palace
out
will
there.
have, haven't we?
Yeah,
Palace is the last one.
Yeah, I don't think there's many
He's
out there.
taking Wout fast.
Wout fast.
Not taking Wout fast.
Yeah, so if you're taking City out, you've got United, Leicester, Brighton, Palace, or Brentford.
I think, ironically, the closest that you'd get to taking someone's probably Nathan Collins.
Yeah.
Ironically. Because I watched Brentford against Arsenal on Saturday and he was brilliant, but the lad next to him, Sepp Vandenberg, absolute toss. So we're not taking him. I think you'd struggle, wouldn't you? I don't think I would.
I'm not high on Tate. I think Mark Gay is one that stands out to me as a good centre half, but I don't necessarily think I'd go and just say I'm definitely going to swap it on. I think he's a very good centre half by all means, but I don't think I'll be going out my way to swap him for Agbadou at the moment, at least.
No.
Who Brighton got these days? Dunk.
Van Heck.
Van Heck. Nah, not interested.
No. They want rid of Dunk. They're all over social media saying Dunk's got to go, so I wouldn't take him anyway.
I never got that Dunk train. When everyone was saying Dunk for England, and then he played for England and he looked absolutely toss. I was like, yeah, he's just a player that's come up with the team and just bit of a system player. I would not go near Lewis Dunk. And even if Wolves fans say, "Oh, let's go and get him in the summer," not for me.
No. Yeah, Lewis Dunk is the Jordan Graham of Dan Burns.
Yes.
Respect Jordan Graham.
Overhyped,
under
delivered, and Dan Burns world class.
Yeah.
I'll finish with one. Bradley Moss. Do you reckon that Keanu Hoover has a shout next season if Nelson Semedo moves on? I was just having a look. He's actually played 26 games this season in Ligue 1 for Auxerre.
I think he's done all right in Auxerre. He's had a red card or two, I think. But
he has another red. Oh, he had 1 second yellow. To be fair, yeah.
Yeah, that's a red though. That's a red card.
Yeah.
But you'd be talking Rodrigo Gomez coming in replacement of Semedo at the moment, wouldn't you? Surely. No disrespect to Keanu Hoover again. He had a good career, wasn't he? But
without knowing exactly how they play on Transfermarkt, he's got him down as a right back and a right midfield playing there. So I would assume they might be playing wing backs as well, which is probably one of the biggest reasons Wolves loaned him out there. But
yeah, Auxerre aren't brilliant either, to be fair. So I think the fact that he's getting regular football in what I think is a strong physical league, I think that's been the best move that he could have possibly had. I think similarly, if you look at Fabio Silva now Las Palmas are kind of battling relegation, but the fact that he's played every week and he's got a really good goal scoring kind of contribution record as well, I think that's what these players needed. I think certain loan moves have been slagged off. Why is he going there and why is he going there? But the fact that they're getting game time, I think Hoover will go in the summer. I don't think he's a Vitor Pereira type player. I think he'll maybe get the summer with the manager, but I don't think he'll want him around personally. Yeah.
They're doing okay. I mean, I just checked. I think they've only lost twice in the last 9 games, which is not too bad in the back. But they're at mid-table. They're safe.
They play a back five, so he's a wing back, isn't he? So
Yeah, which is good. Which is good. Which is what Wolves actually probably needed him to.
yeah.
Full season at a top level isn't too bad. So I'm sure they keep it
No,
close.
they're higher than I thought they were. They're 10th, but they are quite conservative. When I've watched them play, they're quite a conservative team, as French teams go, because it can be a little bit gung-ho, but they're sat above Rennes, and Rennes are a decent side, so
Yeah.
he's playing at a good level, isn't he, which is important.
Well, either way, if he stays or if not, his value would have been. He's in a better place than what it was this time last year, anyway. So there we go, lads. Thank you very much once again. That is the end of this episode of the Talking Walls podcast. Joe, where can people find you if they wish?
At Concept Scouting, you'll find me there.
Perfect. And Jord, what about you?
At Jord for 7.
Perfect. And I'm at David's a Party everywhere, and we're at Talking Walls on all the socials. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating. But until next week, enjoy the weather, enjoy another 3 points for Wolves, and we'll catch you on the next one.